We're learning more about how Florida insurance attorney Lindsay Halligan, now an interim U.S. attorney, maybe, just barely managed to indict former FBI Director James Comey days before the statute of limitations were set to expire. Last week, Halligan, who had never prosecuted a single case in her entire career, whose only appearances in federal court were as one of Donald Trump's personal lawyers, was abruptly installed to lead one of the country's most important prosecutors' offices. And she got right to work on her first ever grand jury presentation, obviously ordered by the president, right? By all accounts, it was not an easy task, nor did it go smoothly. She not only took the unusual step of signing the 2-page long double-spaced indictment herself, something a junior career prosecutor typically handles, although possible no one was willing to do it. But people familiar with the matter tell CNN that DOJ headquarters declined to provide lawyers to assist her, and FBI agents and lawyers working to prepare her were denied their request for a paralegal professional to assist in the presentation. In the end, only 14 of the 23 grand juries voted to indict Comey on only 2 of the 3 counts, narrowly clearing the 12-vote threshold. So, Halligan's first time in the court as a prosecutor did not go smoothly either. As the New York Times reports, at one point, she entered the wrong courtroom. Mistakes can happen. When she found the right one, she stood on the wrong side of the judge and then appeared confused about the paperwork she had just signed. A court transcript obtained by CBS News gives details to that interaction. So this has never happened before. I've been handed the 2 documents that are in the Mr. Comey case that are inconsistent with one another, Judge Lindsay Valla said to Halligan. After a back and forth about the documents, Halligan said, I only signed the 1 2-count indictment. I don't know which one with 3 counts you have in your hand. Okay, it has your signature on it, Judge told Halligan, who responded, okay, well. Even after all of that, it also seems completely possible the entire thing could just get thrown out as an invalid case because, as a conservative lawyer argued in the National Review, it seems highly doubtful that Lindsay Halligan has been validly appointed as the United States attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. George Conway is a conservative attorney and president of the Society for the Rule of Law, and he joins me now. George, there's a bunch of sort of weedsy details about how you can be a U.S. attorney or not. Now, the sort of general principle people know is that this is a Senate-confirmed position, importantly so. You get appointed by the president, you get confirmed by the Senate. In some emergency situations or interim situations, people can get named as actings. But there's like real pretty settled like law tradition about who gets to do that. And it's really not clear that Halligan even can fill the role that she currently is in now.
Yeah, she has no more authority than you or I or my 2 corgis to present an indictment to a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia. And the reason is quite simple. There's this federal statute, 28 U.S.C. 546, that basically says, it expresses one of the ways in which a U.S. attorney, a temporary U.S. attorney, can be put in. And this is the installation of what's called an interim U.S. attorney. And the way it happens is if there's a vacancy in the office, a Senate-confirmed person leaves the job, then the Attorney General can appoint somebody, but only for 120 days. After that 120 days expires, then the judges of the district court in the district where the U.S. Attorney's office is can then appoint somebody to succeed that interim U.S. attorney as another interim U.S. attorney. And what happened here was there was a fellow named Siebert who had that 120-day appointment from the Attorney General and then was reappointed by the district judge. But the president didn't like him because he didn't want to file this stupid and meritless indictment against Comey. And so he resigned. And so bingo, here we have Lindsay Halligan, never appeared in a federal criminal case before, barely knows where to find her way in the courtroom. But I have to give her credit. I mean, if what had happened to her that day had happened to me, I'd want to crawl under a rock and never be heard from again. But
welcome back to the Takeout. Thank you for hanging out with us. Transcripts from the court session where a federal grand jury returned the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey reveal the prosecution's handling of the case left the judge confused. Comey was ultimately charged with 1 count of making false statements to Congress and 1 count of obstruction of justice. Scott McFarland joins us now. Why the confusion?
Well, the new U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, in her first job ever as a prosecutor, signed 2 different charging instruments in this case, which is untraditional. The judge, according to the transcript, said she'd never seen this before, but isn't going to impact the case itself. We know that late this afternoon, the formal record was submitted that Patrick Fitzgerald will be James Comey's defense lawyer, powerhouse defense attorney and former U.S. attorney in the Northern District of Illinois. We know James Comey goes for an arraignment Thursday, a week from Thursday, in Alexandria, Virginia. But there's always the possibility, Major, the Department of Justice comes in with a superseding indictment, a newer, larger indictment that adds more charges, or at least adds more detail to a bare bones charging document so far.
Why are you thinking that might happen?
Because so little is in this initial indictment. There's such little detail. It's boilerplate almost. It's barely a page and a half. And these allegations against the high-profile defendant could come with a larger explanation, more details, or even more charges before now and then.
Scott, importantly, over the weekend, the president and others around him in the echo chamber of MAGA began to talk about FBI agents and January 6th and pre-positioning or involvement. Help my audience, help our audience understand fact and fiction.
Let me draw the connective tissue first to James Comey. The president last night indicated that he may seek or monitor an investigation of former FBI Director Chris Wray, who oversaw the FBI's response to January 6th. In the same weekend, though, the president perpetuated a conspiracy theory that FBI agents may have been on the ground and helped incite the Capitol riot, citing some new reporting with some newly released FBI documents. What those documents show, according to a review by CBS News, is there were FBI agents who responded to the insurrection, were there after the attack began. There's been no indication, none, that anybody in the FBI was part of firing up or directing the crowd. And we know that in part because the documents don't show that. There's been no evidence of that in 4.5 years. And about 1,500 January 6th defendants sought to defend themselves. Not one ever offered a shred of it.
Good for her.
Well, and to the point where finally, like, there was a Senate-confirmed position, there was then this vacancy, then the judges of the district put in Siebert. He's gone now. Like, there's no authority, established authority, that you could then just throw another person in there. And to be clear, this is something they've run up against in a few places. Alina Habba in New Jersey has been dinged by the local judges there. Like, they seem to think they can run roughshod over this law and put in whoever they want.
Yeah. I mean, there's another method by which they could put in an acting U.S. attorney, but that person has to be already Senate confirmed and already in the Justice Department. And Lindsay Halligan was neither. She was working as a hack in the White House. So she has basically no authority. She's not the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, and no one else. We saw her signature on that indictment. No one else signed that indictment, which means that it is invalid. And because no other valid attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia's U.S. Attorney's Office signed the indictment, and because the statute of limitations has run, this case is over.
That's such a good point, right? It's not, right, so the case here is, before we even get to the merits of this case, which I think are pretty rough for the state, for the government, before you even get to that, before you even get to the filing a malicious prosecution order to get it thrown out, which it looks like they've got a decent shot at, the argument here is like, that indictment was signed by a person who didn't have the authority. It's like George Comey or Chris Hayes signed it. It doesn't count, and the statute of limitations are up, so,
Yeah, the statute of limitations expired at midnight last night, so Comey's home free. This case should be done. Sorry.
I'm curious to see. One of the things that will be interesting here is Comey seems to welcome a trial.
The entire fiasco surrounding Lindsay Halligan's appointment and the rushed indictment of James Comey isn't just another Trump scandal. It's a case study in how power can be warped when loyalty replaces law. Trump didn't elevate Halligan because of her courtroom experience. She had none. She'd never tried a single case, never led a prosecution, and yet she was suddenly at the helm of one of the nation's most powerful U.S. attorney offices. Why? Because she was willing to do one thing, charge Comey. That was her qualification: obedience. It's the clearest window yet into how Trump views the Justice Department, not as a pillar of democracy, but as a personal hit squad dressed up in government titles. What followed was a disaster that bordered on parody. Halligan stumbled through her debut like someone reading from a script they didn't understand. She wandered into the wrong courtroom, addressed the judge from the wrong side, and fumbled her own documents. At one point, when confronted with two separate indictments, both bearing her signature, she could only shrug and admit confusion. The spectacle wasn't just embarrassing, it was telling. The real issue wasn't her ineptitude, it was that she should never have been there to begin with. U.S. attorneys are supposed to be confirmed by the Senate for a reason, to ensure legitimacy. But Halligan skipped that process entirely. She wasn't a DOJ official, she was a Trump loyalist, parachuted in from his inner circle. As legal expert George Conway bluntly put it, Halligan had no more authority to sign that indictment than a random bystander or a couple of dogs on the street. Which means the entire case may be void on its face. And since the statute of limitations has already run out, it's not just void, it's dead. Trump's attempt to weaponize the Justice Department may have sabotaged itself before the fight even began. It's a self-inflicted wound, the direct result of trying to bend the system until it broke. This isn't just about Halligan or even Comey. It's about the deeper rot Trump leaves behind. He doesn't value experience or independence. He values submission. He fills crucial positions with people who answer to him, not the Constitution. And the outcome is always the same: chaos, incompetence, and institutional decay. The Comey indictment is only the latest symptom. In the end, the irony is brutal. Trump's desperate attempt to punish a perceived enemy might have handed that same enemy an escape route. The indictment's foundation is cracked, the appointment itself illegal, and the timeline expired. Once again, Trump's obsession with control has backfired spectacularly. What remains is a warning written in real time. When power is treated as a personal weapon, it eventually turns on the one who wields it.